week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I look to get off the waiver wire this week. The first guy, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. So Jordan Love, he looked good in his debut as a starter. At the Bears, 245 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, and 12 rushing yards. So right now, Jordan Love, he's out there in tons of fantasy leagues at 69%. And he's a guy that looked poised in the pocket. His number one wide receiver, Christian Watson, wasn't even playing in the game. And I know the Bears' defense isn't all that great, but to go over there and Soldier Field, a tough atmosphere to play, and have a good ball game here for Jordan Love to start the season is very good. We know Aaron Jones, he pulled that hamstring on that slam route. He took the end zone as well. But right now, Jordan Love, like I said, available in tons of fantasy leagues. He's got a good matchup coming up at the Atlanta Falcons, an indoor game, which is always a plus in week 2. And I know it's more deeper leagues, 2 quarterback leagues, you're most likely going to pick Love up. But even if you have another quarterback that you're not so sure of, like Anthony Richardson, who could be up and down, he's banged up a little bit as well. And guys like that in that range from anywhere from the 12th to the 15th range, a back-end quarterback where you might platoon quarterback. So right now, after a great outing in his first start here, Jordan Love is the quarterback over there with Rodgers out in New York. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on, and he's available right now in 69% of fantasy leagues. Next quarterback's Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. So Brock Purdy picked up where he left off last season before going down in the NFC Championship game with the elbow injury. 220 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 20 rush yards, and a fumble loss in the Week 1 victory at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now he's got a pretty good matchup on paper going to the Los Angeles Rams, even though the Rams look good in their Week 1 victory versus Seattle Seahawks. But like I said, Purdy, I know he was drafted last, Mr. Irrelevant last season in the NFL draft, but this guy could go out there. He could put up numbers, obviously. Only available in 45% of fantasy leagues, but he's got all the weapons. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, who came off a monster game with 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. So right now, with all the weapons and a solid matchup coming up here at the Los Angeles Rams, and still reasonably available in 45% of fantasy leagues. If you need some help at the quarterback position or in deeper leagues, I would give him an ad this week. The next quarterback is Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints. Carr, he cracked 300 yards in his Saint debut, and it didn't look pretty at times, but you know Carr's a gamer. You know he goes out there, you know he's going to throw the football a whole lot. 305 pass yards, a touchdown in Intel versus Tennessee. And week 2, a pretty good matchup on paper at Carolina. So right now the receiving core is pretty solid, I believe, over there in New Orleans. Obviously, Chris Olave, the main wide receiver. Michael Thomas, if he could stay healthy, he's a decent number 2. And Shaheed, he broke out in this ball game as well, who I'm going to mention in the other videos at the receiver position to add on the wire. But anyway, Derek Carr, available right now in a decent amount of fantasy leagues, 62%. You know, you're going to get some good games and some bad games with him, but he looked a little bit rejuvenated over there in New Orleans. And right now in deeper leagues, or if you want to have a platoon at quarterback and go by matchups, Carr is a quarterback to add this week. Next QB's Mac Jones of the New England Patriots. So Mac Jones last season was definitely a down year for him, but to versus a Philadelphia Eagle team, even though I know they were trailing most of the game and he had to drop back pretty much the whole game and throw the football, he came in with a big one, 316 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and 15 rush yards. Here's Mac Jones. And he was without Devontae Parker, one of his main targets in this ball game. But him and Kendrick Bourne obviously have a good rapport. I know Juju Smith-Schuster didn't do much in this one, but Hunter Henry had a breakout ball game. And Stevenson and Elliott in the backfield are a pretty decent 1-2 combo. So right now, with a good matchup coming up versus Miami, where we know their defense is banged up, obviously, in week 2. And they had a shootout where they just survived that ball game versus the Chargers. I think is a streaming option. It's not the worst thing in the world. Here's Mac Jones. But like some of these other quarterbacks, he's more of a guy in deeper leagues, obviously, or just a guy to stash on your bench, maybe in a dynasty league or something, to see what he could do. But right now, after a good ball game versus a tough defense in Philly, cracking 25 fantasy points for Mac Jones, he's definitely a quarterback to keep an eye on. And he's available in 92% of fantasy leagues. And the 5th and final quarterback I looked at off the wire this week here if you need help with the positions, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. So Matthew Stafford, I know Cooper Kupp's out, but he went in there in Seattle. He spread them out 4 or 5 wide, and he does what he does best. He just throws that ball, is Matthew Stafford. And we know he's a gunslinger, and he went for 334 pass yards in that ball game. We're pretty much unknowns. Nakula, the rookie, Tutu Otwell, he had a good ball game. Tyler Higbee, a decent game. But Kyron Williams, really the breakout performer out of the backfield running the football. But right here, Stafford looked comfortable even without Kupp. Like we said, he likes to work the seam of the field. And he has some speed over there. Atwell's pretty quick, and Nakua is more of a possession receiver. His next matchup here in week 2 is a tough one, no doubt about it, versus San Francisco. But like I said, if you want to stash him on the bench as a backup or a guy just to see what he could do, right now he's available in tons of leagues at 71%. So that's a few quarterbacks I look to hit off the wire here for week 2 of the fantasy football season.